Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the beating heart of environmental management systems. We are going to unpack the incredibly deep and honestly sometimes hidden relationship between organizational resources and employee competence, all through the lens of the ISO 14001:2026 framework.
Think about this for a second. Can an employee actually be competent if they literally don't have the tools, the time, or the budget to do their job? It's a tough question, right? But it absolutely forces us to step back from that old-school checklist-style definition of competence we've leaned on for years and instead look at the entire operational ecosystem.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First up, the resource competence link. Second, how constraints cripple competence. Third, the combined audit approach. And finally, reporting systemic nonconformances. Let's get into it.
All right, Section 1, the resource competence link. Two sides of the exact same environmental coin. So, when you look at the 2026 standard, Clause 7.1 outlines resources. We're talking technology, money, time, and infrastructure. Then, right next to it, Clause 7.2 covers competence, your team's knowledge, skills, behavior, and awareness. Think about it. Your tangible assets are the literal fuel for your human capabilities. You simply cannot achieve the human side without adequately providing the resource side. I love how the source material puts this. It states, quote, "Competence is not merely defined by individual qualification, but is strongly influenced by organizational resources." Basically, if there's a competence failure out on the factory floor, it's almost never just that individual's fault. More often than not, it's a structural, systemic resource issue that set that person up to fail from the start.
Moving right along to Section 2, how constraints cripple competence. Watching the dominoes fall.
Picture four massive pressures constantly squeezing an employee's ability to stay competent. You've got financial constraints, like slash budgets, time constraints from completely rushed schedules, human resource constraints, which usually means severe staffing shortages, and technological constraints, like relying on outdated monitoring equipment. If leadership squeezes any single one of these areas, human competence just leaks right out of the system.
Let's look at how this actually plays out in the real world. Say you've got a technological constraint, like you don't have a digital safety data system. Well, employees can't easily look up risks, which directly results in improper chemical handling. Or what if you're stuck doing manual wastewater sampling? Human error inevitably creeps in, and bam, inaccurate performance reporting. And if you slash the training budget, your team is left in complete ignorance of updated emission limits. The lack of the resource, literally, creates the lack of capability.
Okay, get this. Imagine a quality manager who is incredibly competent when it comes to ISO 9001. Suddenly, to save a few bucks, leadership hands them all the environmental tasks too. No extra time, no extra training, just here you go. What happens? Even though they're an amazing employee, their expertise doesn't equal capacity for this totally new, complex domain. The inevitable result is a massive stack of environmental audit nonconformances, not because they don't care, but because they are entirely overloaded. The crucial takeaway here is that staffing shortages create a highly dangerous environment where even your absolute best employees can't maintain their skills. Workload pressure exceeds capacity. They lose focus on critical environmental risks. Any training they do manage to get is compressed and honestly pretty ineffective. And ultimately, they burn out, they leave, and you lose all that institutional knowledge.
Which brings us to Section 3, the combined audit approach, catching the falling dominoes.
This is where the 2026 standard really shines. It introduces this elegant combined audit procedure. You can't just flip through training logs anymore. Step 1. Auditors review resource allocation plans and budgets directly. Step 2. They cross-reference those resources with how complex the operation actually is. And Step 3. They interview the staff, not just to quiz them, but to ask about practical applications and the daily constraints they face. They're checking resources and competence at the exact same time.
Think about the difference between the old way and the new way. The old school siloed auditor checks the training attendance sheet and says, yep, they attended the class, they're competent. But the modern 2026 auditor evaluates the whole ecosystem. They say, sure, they attended the class, but the monitoring software they have to use on the floor is 10 years out of date, so they literally can't apply what they learned. This is how modern auditors uncover those hidden root causes of systemic failures.
Now, when leadership gets this right and perfectly aligns funding with capability, it is a beautiful thing. It's the sweet spot. Objective evidence of a healthy ecosystem looks like validated equipment calibration records paired with employees who can easily demonstrate practical skills. You'll see accessible digital platforms, which leads directly to clear, confident interview responses from the staff. They know what they're doing because they actually have the tools to do it.
All right, Section 4, reporting systemic nonconformances, fixing the root cause, not just the symptom. Here is where the rubber meets the road, reporting. A weak audit report says, missing training form for waste handling. What happens next? The employee gets a slap on the wrist, a piece of paper gets filled out, and nothing changes. But a structured 2026 report, it says, lack of training budget directly caused hazardous waste mismanagement. You see the difference there? We absolutely have to trace a missing form all the way back to the boardroom's financial decisions.
Think about how fast this spirals. It's really a cautionary tale of how a tiny financial constraint balloons into a massive disaster. Day 1, the boardroom cuts the training budget to save a few bucks. By month 3, the staff's regulatory knowledge is already outdated. By month 6, that lack of knowledge leads to improper waste segregation out on the floor. And by year 1, boom, a major compliance violation. The auditor's entire job is to show leadership that year 1's violation was directly caused by day 1's budget cut.
And look, continual improvement gets thrown around a lot like a corporate buzzword, right? But it's not. It is a core principle that demands tangible, sustained, proactive resource commitment. You literally cannot continuously improve your environmental outcomes if you aren't continuously optimizing your team's competence and investing real money into your infrastructure.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to mull over. Is your environmental management system built on a foundation of genuine capability, or is it just built on a foundation of paperwork? I highly encourage you to go look at your own organization's resource allocation with fresh eyes today. See if your people actually have the fuel they need to be competent. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep learning.